Hey everybody, Jesse here for 3Prong Gaming, and in today's episode we're going to import some Make Human characters, and I'm going to show you the process for retargeting those animations. Then we're going to take those into Blender because the process is not really clean and there's going to be some bones that we got to fix up. A little tedious but not very difficult, so go ahead, sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee and open up your editor and let's get this thing going. Alright, we got a little decent amount of work to go ahead and go over today, so let's jump right into it. Like I said, there's going to be some point, eventually you're going to want to not use this mannequin anymore, and I figured it's about that time in the series that we kind of start beautifying this a little bit, I guess, making it a little bit good. Maybe upcoming episodes we may do some landscape work or something like that. I mean, it's kind of hard. We've got a nice looking building here from Matt. I will just call him Matt as I have in the past. So it'd be nice to have some decent characters to walk around the world. Right now we're only going to go ahead and do 2 characters. You can do as many as you want. The process is going to be the same. So let's go ahead and show you what you're going to need here. If you don't have these already, first you're going to need Make Human. Go ahead and get their latest build, Make Human 1.1. and go to the download page. There's a download right there. We're also going to be using Blender, so go ahead and select Blender, go to blender.org and download their current build 2.78a. You can use an older build if you want. Should be okay for our purposes today, but just get current. These are all open source software. For Blender in Make Human, they got Blender tools. We won't need them in today's episode, but I just wanted to show you guys this. It's for things like make clothes and a couple other things, make walk. I haven't really played with those yet, but they can be useful. And so when you select that, you're going to actually get this. It looks like it's kind of an error page, but it's not. You just come here, Blender Tools 1.1.0-all.zip. Download that. It gives you instructions on how to put all the files you need into plugins and all that good stuff. So, but you need these. If you don't have Blender, definitely get it. You need to get familiar with it on how to use it, because as an indie game artist, you need to at least know how to prototype your own meshes and do some basic animating work. So I totally suggest getting this. It's very powerful software. All right, so when you open up Make Human, this is going to be the default screen. I'm not going to show you guys how to make a character. This is really easy. It's all just a bunch of full sliders and all that. You make the characters you want, have fun, and go at it. I've already made my 2. I'm just going to show you the process of what to make sure to do when you're exporting these. Okay, so once you have your character, I'm going to show you guys here. I've already got 2 of them. Here's my female character I'm going to use. And eventually, if you're going to do this in a production run, you're going to want, the meshes are great. Don't get me wrong with the meshes, but there are options for clothing and the texturing of the skin, and it isn't really all that great. So you're going to want to go in and fine tune that. That's down the road. Right now, this is great to make it start to feel more like a regular game, because we've actually got characters with faces and skin and shoes and all that good stuff. So this is the female character I created. I'm only going to do the male today. The process is going to be the same no matter which one you do. And this is my male character. Okay, so some things you need to do before you export it is go over to Pose and Animate. And you want to make sure that under skeleton, we select Game Engine. Okay, so make sure that one is selected. It's going to throw the bones in here for us. And then we want to come over here to Pose. By default, it's set to none. That's what we want. In previous videos that you might have seen, it tells you to use a T-pose, but that's for the old Unreal skeleton. We don't want that T-pose, right? We want the A-pose where his arms are just like this in the form of an A, all right? So make sure none is selected there, and then come back here to your files, export it, select your location, give it a name. Make sure Filmbox FBX is selected. All right, over here, the default options are feet on ground and binary FBX. We want to make sure to deselect binary FBX. I'm not quite sure why, but I've been told that that's the way it does, and that's the way I've been doing it, and it works fine. So you'll want this selected if you go straight into Blender with this, which if you go straight into Blender, you're going to need the Make Human Exchange, the MHX2 exporter. Just Google MHX2, and it'll take you to Thomas, I forget what his last name is, but it'll take you to his blog page where you can download all this, and he tells you how to use it and all that good stuff. But we're not going to go into that today. Right now, we're just going to do FBX. Feet on the ground is selected. And then by default, decimeters is actually selected. We want centimeters because that's what Unreal Engine uses. So make sure that that is selected. And then go ahead and export it. I've already exported it, so I'm not going to do it now. All right. So when it's done, come back into Unreal. And I'm just going to put this all right into the meshes folder where we have our mannequin skeleton. That'll be fine for today's thing. So go ahead and find the file that you exported, the FBX, and either drag and drop it into the content browser, or you can select import. You know how to import by now. So these are the options we're going to want. Import a skeleton, true. Import mesh, true. Skeleton, none. Do not try to bring it in using the skeleton. It won't work. Okay, so we need to make sure that that's cleared. We've got none under skeleton. And I don't think you need this selected. I've been doing it. It should be fine. I do it anyways. Update skeleton to reference pose. Shouldn't need it. I think this would just, if you export it as a T pose, it would bring it in as an A pose that Unreal uses, because it needs to use, for whatever reason, they set it up to use the A frame. So I do that just in case. Preserve smoothing groups. You can deselect that. Actually, we're going to get an error when we import. I don't know if we get the error if we deselect it. I'm just going to leave it selected. The error is not that big of a deal. It's actually a warning, not really an error. Come down here. By default, it's going to want to create a physics asset for it. Let's clear that out. We don't want to create a physics asset because after we retarget, we're going to end up having to do a new physics asset anyways. So not a big deal. So just make sure that's selected to none. All that, by the way, is under the advanced tab right there. Okay. And then come down here. Normally I don't do this when I import from Blender because it doesn't import materials and textures too well. I just bring those in by hand. But for this, coming straight out of Make Human, it's going to make it a whole lot easier because it will actually do the materials and textures properly. So I make sure those are selected and then select Import All. All right, so after it's imported, we're going to get this pop-up warning like I mentioned with the smoothing groups. It's just a warning, not a big deal. We don't have the option to export smoothing groups. Possibly if you unselected preserve smoothing groups, we probably wouldn't get this warning, but it doesn't matter if you do or not. That's why I just left it checked. It's just a warning. So we can go ahead and close that out. And then it's going to want to compile that. I'm pointing at my screen like you'd see. It's going to want to compile the shaders right here. Let's go ahead and let this finish compiling, and then we're going to move these textures and materials into better structured folders. So once that's done, we'll go ahead and do that. All right, so now that the shaders have finally finished compiling, it takes a minute for it to do it. Of course, I've got high CPU usage going on right now. I got a warning on the screen, but yeah, we do what we can. So first, I'm just going to, while I'm in here, I'm going to select the materials, which are denoted by the green right here. I'm going to select the materials that were created for this import for the character. And I'm just going to move them around a little bit. I'm going to take the materials and I'm going to put them into our current materials folder, move them here. Then I'm going to take the textures that were for the character as well and move them into the textures folder. Make sure I've got all the right ones selected and then move those there. I've already got them there, so they already exist. And let me go back in here. This is not the first time that I've recorded this episode. Let me just delete the ones that are in there because they're not being referenced and these other ones are being referenced. So that's why I'm doing this now. Where am I at? Mesh. Select these again and shoes, and there we go. Move them into here. Yeah, those ones are being referenced by the current materials. So yeah, go ahead and right click on content and fix up redirectors and folders. Want to always do that to make sure things are straight whenever you move folders around. Okay. I deleted those. I never deleted textures. Okay, so back in the mesh. Let's go ahead and open this up and open up our new character. And there he is. He's all textured pretty for us. Like I said, for a final production run, you're going to want to go in and give him some actual PBR materials, give him new clothes, whatever. All right, so jump over into the skeleton. What we need to do now, if you notice, actually, if you go into animations, even though we have animations, there's none listed here because they're not targeted for this skeleton, even though generally speaking, it's kind of the same skeleton. At least the bone structure is. but it's not. So that's just the way the animations work, is they have to be targeted for a specific skeleton. So what we need to do is come up here into the skeleton tab, go into Retarget Manager, and under here, under Select Rig, it's going to say None. We need to make this say Select Humanoid Rig. Then just come down here and make sure it should already be set up properly for you, but just make sure that everything matches up. This is what it should be. This is the root of the rig. Make sure that your root bone's selected, pelvis, spine, 1, 2, 3, all the way down the line. So just make sure those are all set up. They should be, but just double check them just in case. We don't need to click Save Pose. Just leave it as it is. Close that out. Then we need to come back into the mannequin, the UE4 mannequin. All right, what we need to do now is we need to Retarget Manager on this. Again, select Humanoid Rig. Close this out. It's going to say it needs to be saved. Control S to save everything. And of course, if you're in 4.14, it's Control Shift S now. That's going to be something for me to get used to when I finally upgrade to 4.14, which I'll probably be doing here pretty quick. All right, so now we got that done. Come back into our animations. And right now we're just going to do the top-down walk animation. These are the animations that we chose. These are from the starter pack. And this is all we got right now in use. So I'm going to right-click on top-down walk, come up here to Retarget Anim Asset, and select Duplicate Anim Assets and Retarget. All right, screen's going to pop up here. Here's the source. This is what the animation is currently rigged to. The skeleton is currently rigged to, which is our mannequin. If we select this right here, the one we just imported, you may have a list of them here if you've got different skeletons or different rigs in here. But we select him, and there he is in the screen. Go ahead and leave these default settings here. I don't think this is show only compatible skeletons. Yeah, I don't think those are anything we need to concern ourselves about. Prefix and suffix, you can change the name of the animation if you want to. I'm just going to leave it as it is and select Retarget. All right, now it's going to take our new retargeted animation. It's going to put it out here in the main content folder. I've created a subfolder, mh_animations. I'm just going to drag and drop this into that new folder, move it here. All right, so now we've got this animation there. So let's double click the animation, and whew, that's not looking too good. So this is going to be some work that we're going to have to do. And I think I'm going to try to find a better way to do this. I'm just going to let you know right now, I don't think there is. What we're going to go through right now is a bit of a tedious process, especially if you've got a whole bunch of animations to work with. Now, this is for the starter pack animations. I have not attempted to do this with the good animations like I showed off for the mobility animations I showed off in my last video. I haven't attempted this yet, but I'm thinking that that's using the Unreal Engine skeleton itself. So I'm thinking if you use those, you're probably going to have to do this as well. But the nice thing is once you retarget the animations, any other characters you bring in from Make Human, you can set to that skeleton that we use. So now we should be able, I haven't tested it yet, so I may be, biting my tongue here, but once I bring in the female after we do this, we can have her use this rig, this skeleton, and everything should be golden. Okay. But I want to pause this animation here so we can kind of see what's going on. For this particular game, you probably could almost just leave this as it is. Of course, we got a little bit. We can do some internal work here to retarget most of this. Let's do that right now before I talk any more. Go ahead and in the skeleton tab, select Show Advanced Options. All right, we're going to get all this. You're going to see all these are selected to animations right now. So what we need to do is we need to leave the root and pelvis the way they are right now. But over here, over spine 1, right-click on it and select Recursively Set Translation Retargeting to Skeleton. Right, so that's going to take everything that is a child of the spine bone, which is pretty much everything else except for the thigh. We could probably even do the thigh. Let's go ahead and right-click on the thigh and recursively retarget to skeleton, and same thing with the right thigh, recursively select to skeleton, and it's going to straighten out those legs for us as well. Okay, so everything here is set to skeleton except the root and pelvis. We want to leave those as animation. I'll show you here. If we move it to skeleton, that's what's going to happen. Okay, so animation, and animation is where we're going to want it. But you notice here with the root, by doing that to skeleton, it moves it back a little bit. So it's a little bit off. So we need to leave that, like I said, on animation. All right. So you can see here for the most part, everything looks pretty good, right? So we look at this, he's moving pretty good. Sorry about that. Like I said, everything looks pretty good here. We go ahead and play this. You can see him walking pretty good. He's got a hitch in there, but that's just the animation. That's not the mesh or the skeleton. Yeah, everything looking pretty good, except for if we pause it, you're going to notice here, for whatever reason, and I've tried to mess around with it inside here, the fingers and the hands, they just do not retarget properly. So we're going to have to go in and at least fix those. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Control S, let's go ahead and save everything. Jump back out here to our animation, right click on it and do Asset Actions, Export. Right now I've got this set to go to my desktop. I'm just going to throw it there. I'm going to keep the name the same so that way we can just re-import the animation. All right, go ahead and select Save. All right, so here we are in Blender, and this is my default startup scene. Yours may look differently. So a couple things that we're going to have to note here. Make sure your frame rate is set to 30 frames per second. Not that it's going to make too big of a deal. That's under the render settings. Also make sure that under the scene information, we're set to length is metric, angle is degrees, and I've got my scale set to 0.01, and then it exports at a full scale. This just keeps everything in proportion with the Unreal Engine. Okay, so make sure that those are set like that. That way, I mean, you could export it smaller, but if you don't, if you keep this at 1 and export it at 1, the mesh is going to be much larger than it needs to be. I'm not sure why, but that's just the way it is. Okay, so let's go ahead and click File. Let's import FBX. We need to go find the location where you saved your animation right here. I've got top-down walk FBX. And we can go ahead and leave everything as default right here. Make sure ignore leaf bones is off. Yeah, we don't need any extra bones. We don't have any mesh coming in, so it's not a big deal to import normals. We definitely want to import animations. Leave it like that. Go ahead and import FBX. So we're not going to get the mesh with this, which is not a big deal because it's probably just getting our way anyways. But you can come in here now that we've got this, and you can really see how far off everything is. These ball joints right here on the bones, they're supposed to be lined up with one another. They're supposed to be touching each other. Same thing with the hands. They're not touching the arms. You can see how far off a lot of this is. So it's, like I said, this is a little bit of a tedious process, but it's not too bad. It'll eventually really be tedious once you have more than just one animation to do. So what we need to do now, and 30 frames per second, if you go back and notice in Unreal, if you hover over the animation right here, it's going to see, you see right there under num frames, it says there's 30 frames in this animation. But when we imported it, minimize this down, it only imported it if we right click and select that last frame. It's only got 26 frames. So we'll fix that. We'll scale it up. But just keep that in mind, because if we were to export it with this 26 frames, it would, yeah, you would notice a definite hitch in the animation. So we'll need to scale that up to get back to the 30 animations. So just keep that in mind whenever you're bringing in any of your animations. You got to get that scale to be the same as you exported it. Okay, so let's go ahead and drag in a new little window right here. Select dope sheet. Where is it? There's dope sheet. Open that up. It's going to give you the dope sheet for the animations here. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this stuff. All right, press A. I'm going to deselect all the keys in here, open up the root, and we get every single bone. This is going to be, like I said, this is a little bit of a tedious, because when they record these animations, whether it's mocap or anything like that, every bone is keyframed, whether it needs or not, rotation, location, scale. So we need to go ahead and clear out some of these because these hands don't have any animation to them, and we need to reset those hands. So go ahead and move into pose mode. Okay, so let's just go ahead and we're going to start with the right hand. Press A to deselect all the bones. Then I'm going to press B here and select all the hand bones. Right, make sure that they're all selected here on the right hand. And you can see over here that everything is highlighted white. All these bones are highlighted white. Shows where all the keys are at for those. What we need to do now is just hover over the name. You don't want to do it over the keyframes. You want to do it over the names right here. Press X. It's going to delete more than I wanted it to delete. Control Z. I don't know why it did that. Try that again. Delete. Control Z. I don't know why it's doing that. It shouldn't be doing that. Let's try that again. B, select these hand bones and hover over, press X. There we go. So if that happens to you, just, do like I just did and try to fix that. Okay. So this is actually pretty easy. The hand in the animation is normally curled. You can recurl the hands if you want, but what we're going to do now is we're going to reset the hands. So he's actually going to have straight hands, but it's not going to be a big deal for the type of game that we have. So, because you're not going to really be close to him. So come up here under pose and go to clear transform. And I'm only going to do this once because it shows you the shortcuts right here. We got the option to clear transforms. So what we're actually going to want to do is, we'll come back here for the other ones because there's no shortcut for all. So go ahead and select all. There we go. Moves all the bones back to their original position. No rotation, location, or scale applied to them. I'll bring up my other window right here. You can see if I were to select one of the bones, all that's cleared and back to where it's supposed to be. So his fingers are straight. So you can come back in here and you can reanimate the hands. You can do whatever you want with this at this point. You could totally fine tune this animation if you want. You curl his hands. You can actually make hand movements and turn his head, whatever you want. But I'm not going to do that. Leave that up to you. So go ahead and select every bone here in the right hand, or the left hand. Come back over here, hover over the name, press X to delete those keys, and then pose, clear transform, all. Right? So now if we press play, and actually we want to drop this down here before I push play, drop down to 30 frames. Like I said, there's only 26 in here right now, but we will scale it up to 30. But if we press play, go back to the beginning here and press play, the hands are going to be right where they need to be. All right, so let's go ahead and pause that now. And now that's pretty much it. These other bones really weren't that noticeable. You could probably get away with leaving them just like they were. But, if you want to go a little bit above and beyond, then you can go ahead and do that. Because I could notice, at least with the legs, that there was some issues with that. You could see the disalignment of the legs. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a couple of these. You could do the rest of them yourself off on your own time if you want. Go ahead, and I don't do the rotation. When I'm doing these other bones, most of the rotations are fine on them. We don't need to worry about the rotations in the hands. The rotation on these were fine. So we don't want to clear that because that's where most of the animations are coming from, are from the rotations. Okay, so the location, go ahead and shift select the rotations, press X to delete the location and scale, then press Alt G. I believe that's what it is. Up here, clear transform, location is Alt G. So we press Alt G, and there we go. Come back here, the bottom of this foot. There's no animations on this one either. Scroll up and scroll down until we find it here. Deselect the rotations, X, and Alt G. Okay, you can do this with the rest bones. I'm just going to do that with these other two comparable bones on the right-hand side here. Find these, and actually I will select that one as well. Deselect rotation, deselect rotation. Press X, press X over the name. We don't want to delete keyframes. Alt G, and those bones go back to where it is. So that's pretty much it. The only real bone you don't want to mess with is this pelvis right here. This is, for all intent and purpose, this is the root. This is what's attached to the root. So go ahead and leave that. The rest of them, you can straighten up the shoulders if you want. I'm going to do that off camera. I'm not going to do that here. Just the locations, leave the rotation. Same thing with the elbow. You can see the elbow's off right there. Okay, same thing with this other one. The elbow's off a little bit right there. The head's off a little bit. Maybe I'll clear this one out while I'm on camera. And that's pretty much it. We can go ahead. I'm just going to do this one now. X, Alt G. There we go. Okay. So after you get all your bones done and set, what we need to do now is just go ahead and hit File, Export, FBX. All right. Come back to the location where you originally had it here. Right. I'm going to select that. Come down here, and all we need to do under the main tab is select armature. We're not exporting anything else. All we want to do is export the armature. Come over here to geometry, smoothing. Anytime you export from Blender, you want to make sure smoothing is set to edge. But again, we're not exporting any geometry, so that's really not important. I'm going to untick add leaf bones. We don't want to add any leaf bones to it. And the animation, make sure all those are ticked. So again, armature, this is irrelevant, but I always set it to edge anyways. Armature, no leaf bones, and all the animations. Make sure the same name is selected. Go ahead and hit export. All right, so that should be good. So let's go ahead and jump back into Unreal. All right, so go ahead and grab the file we just exported from Blender, drag and drop it. You could probably just right click and hit re-import, but for the first time bringing it in, I like to actually drag and drop it just to make sure all the locations there. You can see there at the bottom of the screen, it said re-import was successful. So now Control S just to save that, double click that, and you can see his hands have been reset. All right, let's go ahead and play this animation now. You can see, because we didn't fix it in there, I'm going to go back to see how bad that hitch really is right now. Let's go ahead and pause this and let's jump back into Blender really quick. We need to set these keyframes to be 30 frames long. Okay, so what we need to do here is just right click on the first key here to move this marker here. We want to be in keyframe number 1. Press X to, press A to select everything. We want all the keyframes selected. Now press X, no, not X, S, and scale them up until that last keyframe hits frame 30. All right, that's all we got to do. Just scale it out, not a big deal. So now we've got 30 keyframes in here. File, let's go ahead and export this again. FBX, top down, everything. If you didn't close Blender, everything should still be set up the same. Armature, no leaf bone, and animations. Go ahead and export it. Come back down here. Let's go ahead and right click this now, and we can go re-import right here. There we go. Select it, and now it's at 30 keyframes. You can see right there, 30 keys. Now we play, and this hitch isn't nearly as bad. It's the original hitch. That's it. That's how you go ahead and take care and retarget your animations using a Make Human. You can see the legs look a ton better now because we fixed those feet up, and the legs right here, the knee joints. The shoulders you can fix up, but again, it's just depends on the game, how far you really want to take it, because in our game, really this is about as close as you're going to get to the character, so you're not going to really even see his hands. If you want to curl his fingers, go right ahead and do it. You can't even really see the hitch in his step from this far away. So yeah, so now this is going to end up having to be done for all the animations that we're using. I'll do those off camera, but now you know how to do it. You could do it yourself. It's really not too bad. It just gets tedious when you have a whole bunch of animations to do. But yeah, we should be able to import our other characters now using this same skeleton. So if we close that out, you know what, I'll test that right now. I haven't done this, so no, I'm not going to, just because it's going to dump in a bunch of files and it's going to recompile shaders and all that. So I'll have to do that off camera. But now we should be able to import all our other characters. When we import, then for the skeleton, we can select the skeleton that we just imported for this particular mesh for this character. And it should be golden, and we shouldn't have to, you know, you only have to do the animations once. You shouldn't have to do it for every single character. All right. That's it. I hope you guys enjoy this. If you did, please do me a favor, go down and hit that like button. Helps me out a ton. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe while you're down there liking it. And until next time, peace.